Okay. All right. I will get started soon. So, for those of you who are listening in, as you guys are coming in, let me know if you can hear me. Hopefully, YouTube is cooperating today. All right. Just doing some testing before we get started to make sure you can hear me. All right. Doing some testing. All right. Hello, everyone. As you're coming in, please let me know if you can hear me as you're coming in. If not, I have a plan B. So we will be fine either way. All right. Perfect. Perfect. How are you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Still waiting for the sun to come out. So, as people are coming in, I'm just going to write in here. I remind you guys that we're going to be talking about boundaries today, the importance of setting healthy boundaries. So, please remember that this is an interactive chat. So, as I am sharing information about boundaries and the importance of it, use the chat. Use the chat if you have questions, use the chat if you just have anything that you want to say. That's completely fine. And if you have questions, I address it at the end. All right. So, just bear with me. I'm just waiting for folks to join in. I'm going to put actually a title of a book that I'm reading now that I think will be very helpful. All right. So, if you are a reader, I know this is going to come in backwards, so that's why I wrote it in the chat. But this book is called Boundaries, When to Say Yes, When to Say No, to Take Control of Your Life. It's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. So I put it in the chat, but I'm also going to put it in the description at the end so that you can take a look at it. This is a really, really, really good book if you struggle with boundaries and if you are looking to really trying to get to the root of why you have a hard time setting boundaries and different steps you can take. So definitely a very good book. Like I said, it's the title is in the chat, and I will also put the title in the description as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Awesome. Yay. Because it was a little bit backwards for me. So I'm glad that you can see it. Let's talk about boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. So I've talked to quite a few people this week who have wanted to work on boundary setting. So I've heard things from it makes me uncomfortable setting boundaries to I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or I'm just doing for others what I would want them to do for me. I've even heard people say that, they have no issue letting people know when they have an issue with something. So you're okay standing up for yourself. You'll let someone know, hey, you hurt my feelings. I don't like when you did this. This bothered me. And you may even go as far to say, if you do this again, we'll no longer be friends. I'm leaving you. Let's say if you're in a romantic relationship, I'm not answering your phone call. If it's a family member, you'll tell them that you'll cut them off, or you'll, stop communicating with them until they learn to respect you. But when it comes time to reinforce that, that's when the issues come up. Right? Is that anyone here? Is anyone here able to set a boundary, but having a hard time enforcing the boundary? So for people like that, I say it's like having a fence, a very, very low fence that someone can step over. But you say, hey, but I have a fence and you're supposed to stay out because I have a fence. Um, what's the point of having the fence? So one thing, there's two categories that really resonate with me. There are multiple categories, but I'm gonna share two that a lot of people fall into when they have issues with boundary setting. So if you've ever done coaching with me, if you're in any of my coaching courses, you know that I love and I encourage note taking. So although you can see this video over again, this might be helpful because if you have comments or questions and you forget, you can look at your notes and you can put it in the chat, and I'll respond to you. So definitely jot this down. The first one is um, a compliant person, right? Compliant. What does that look like? A person who is considered compliant is someone who has learned from an early, early age, maybe childhood, maybe a bad relationship, that it's better not to rock the boat and to just say yes to everything. This can even be, let's say you don't like spaghetti, and I know that's, a simple example, but you don't like spaghetti. But all of your friends are like, let's go eat spaghetti. Instead of rocking the boat and saying, I don't want spaghetti for dinner, you go anyway, right? Someone who feels obligated to always say yes. You do things for other, not necessarily because you want to do it, but because you feel obligated to do it. Because you don't want backlash, because you don't want someone to look at you as untrustworthy. You don't want someone to look at you as someone who is mean, right? So you're compliant. So when you're doing things for others, when you're not saying, no, I don't feel comfortable driving to the airport. No, I don't want to watch my grandbaby, or I don't want to watch my um, your friend's child, or whatever it is. You're so uncomfortable saying no that you do things out of obligation. And this is what happens if you fall in this category. When you do not set firm boundaries and enforce them and do for others out of obligation, guess what? When they don't do the same for you, resentment starts to come up. I've been that person. And the one thing you'll start to say is, well, I always do this for you. And not in a manipulative way, but you're like, I'm your friend. I don't understand why you don't treat me the way that I treat you. But a lot of that is, are you doing things for them? Are you not enforcing that boundary because you absolutely want to? Or are you not enforcing that boundary because you feel obligated to? Because you might have been groomed to believe that a friend always says yes, a partner always says yes. This is your mom. Your mom raised you. This is your dad. Your dad was there for you. So now, as an adult, you have to take care of them. You have to do what they want you to do. You owe them something, right? So you start doing things out of a place of I owe you versus I want to, which is very different. I used to do that a lot of times with money. I was a person who would always loan out money. And unfortunately, I didn't always get back what I gave out. So when I started getting to a point of, okay, I'm going to give you that money. And if you give it back, great. If you don't, great. I'm giving it to you because I want to. I wasn't falling out with people the same way I was when I was loaning money out because I felt obligated to do it. Even though their character and their history told me that they weren't even responsible enough to pay me back, I was still doing it because it was the right thing to do. That's a person who's more compliant with boundary setting. Okay. So that's the first one. The second category we have here is an avoider. Are you an avoider? So, someone who, if you guys notice my style, even though I provide education, even though I give feedback, I'm still learning, right? I'm still on the process and journey of healing myself. So, one thing that I like to do is I like to share my experiences. I like to share different instances or examples of abuse that I experience. An avoider will say, they'll listen to all of the different, you're in a support group, maybe you're in maybe some type of healing circle, or it's your friend or whoever it is. And this person is sharing things with you that is a really sad story of what they experienced in their life. Maybe they're abused as a child, maybe they had an abusive relationship, they had an abusive marriage, and you yourself are dealing with abuse. You yourself have experienced abuse from a parent, right? But because you hear their story and because you feel that in some way your story is not as important as theirs, when it comes time for you to share your story, you'll say something like, well, mine is not nearly as bad as what you just shared. So I'm just going to let you finish your story. I'm just going to listen. So if you need anything, I'm here to talk to you, right? You've dismissed all of your feelings, you've dismissed all of the things that you've gone through, and you put yourself in a role to fix someone else, to help someone else, but you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to share. So we think of boundaries as not letting things in, but think of boundaries as a gate. A gate lets things in that or people in that should come in, but it also lets people out when they should go out. So if you're an avoider, it doesn't really help to bottle everything up and say, well, my story is not as bad as yours, so I don't feel like it's my place to share. You're avoiding, right? And that person has said, hey, I'm opening my boundaries. I'm letting you in. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be open. And you're unable to do that. A lot of people become avoiders after experiencing abuse because you were vulnerable and you let someone come in. And because you let someone come in who didn't mean you well, who was manipulative, abusive, narcissistic, all of that, you become an avoider moving forward and you just bottle everything in. It's almost like you never feel comfortable letting your guard down, right? So both of those are the extreme end because you do want to hold some things in when you're getting to know someone because you don't want to be in a position where you share everything up front and then they turn around and use that against you. I totally understand that. But you never want to minimize your pain, minimize your experience because you don't feel like it's enough to match up to someone else's. So, what category would you say that you fall into? Would you say you're compliant or would you say you just avoid it altogether? One thing about setting a healthy boundary is you are setting the precedent for how someone should treat you. So I hear all the time that people say, I'm so frustrated. I respect this person, but they just walk all over me. I say no and they keep trying to find a new loophole to get me to eventually say yes. They don't respect my boundaries. Well, here's the thing. If you had someone who you could get an endless amount of favors from, and maybe they complain about it initially, but eventually they give in, would you think that they really had an issue with you asking them for favors? Now, there are people out there who know that they're being manipulative, they're being abusive. And that's why many of us are in this group, right? We've experienced that person. But if we don't respect ourselves enough to say, my piece is valuable and I'm cutting off access to myself because you don't bring peace to me, you only bring drama, you only bring chaos, you're always pulling from me, you're never giving. If I'm not respecting my own space, my own comfort, my own peace, then we really can't expect that other person to respect that as well. They're essentially treating us the way we're treating ourselves, right? So many of you here who I've talked to, and I see some of you guys here, I've already spoken to you before and at some point, we would go above and beyond for a friend. We'll go above and beyond for a romantic partner. We'll go above and beyond someone who we care about, right? We're good people. But when we come to ourselves, we don't go above and beyond for ourselves because we're so afraid of being considered selfish. We think that setting boundaries, we think that enforcing boundaries will make us selfish. So I have to, I always ask people when they say, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to, say no because I don't want to come off as being selfish. I ask, well, what is your definition of selfish? And typically someone will say, well, putting yourself first, or, you know, um, I've even heard someone saying, caring about yourself more than others. And I'm like, well, self care can come off as selfish, but the true definition of selfish is being inconsiderate of others. They're actually being inconsiderate of your feelings, of your boundaries, of your peace. They are being selfish. But protecting your peace is not selfish. And I think a lot of us have been groomed to believe, I'm going to keep using the word groom. We've been groomed to believe that saying no is selfish. Maybe you grew up in a household where you weren't allowed to say no. You were always told what to do. You were never asked what you wanted to do. You were always given your choice. You were never asked for options. So you were raised in a house where you didn't have the ability to say no, which is one of the initial boundaries a 2-year-old learns like immediately, right? They know no. That's the first word just about, other than dada. But they know no. And eventually we say, well, that's rude. That's mean. You don't want to say that. So over time, you grow up and you learn that no is a bad thing. Then you move out the house. And now all of a sudden you're expected to be an adult who has a hard time saying no. So don't be down on yourself if you find yourself having a difficult time setting boundaries, because society pretty much grooms us to not say no. And if you're being assertive, especially with certain family members who didn't allow you to be assertive, then it comes off as being rude. It comes off as being nasty. And because we care about what people who we consider closest think about us, we don't want to be considered rude and nasty. Well, what happens when you end up in a romantic relationship and you find that you set boundaries, but at the moment you try to enforce it, you're guilt tripped? Because setting boundaries, but someone who tries to guilt trip you will make you feel ashamed, make you feel guilty. They'll try to get you to feel like you're being really selfish. I would do this for you. Why won't you do this for me? Even though you know that person doesn't really do much for you. You're trying to defend yourself, and then you slowly let that boundary go. Okay, well, this time I'll let you in, but the next time I'm not going to let you in. And then what happens the next time you do? I think many of us feel that to forgive somebody means to let our boundaries down. If someone mistreats you, if someone is abusing you, and you choose, remember, forgiveness is your choice, you choose to forgive them and allow them back in, that does not mean that that boundary no longer exists. If you choose to let someone in after they have broken your trust, after they have done something so extremely hurtful, and you choose to let them back in, the moment they do the same thing again or something similar to it or anything that hurts you, are you comfortable enforcing that boundary? How does it make you feel when you say no? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel unsure of yourself? Pay attention to that. When you say no, how does that make you feel? Do you justify it? Do you say, no, I'm sorry, I can't come get you because I have to, and you just make them an excuse? It may not even be true, but you don't feel comfortable saying no, which is a complete sentence. No in of itself is a complete sentence. You do not have to explain that. But many of us who have an issue with boundaries will say, no, I can't do that. I'm just so, so tired. No, I can't do that because I have a headache. No, my stomach hurts, right? You've learned that you have to, your no is not strong enough by itself, and you have to back it up with a why, with a because. You've learned to justify your emotions, your actions, your feelings, your thoughts, your wants, your desires, right? Is this resonating with anyone? So you've learned to justify your no. So instead of justifying your no, it becomes more comfortable to just say yes. And then you find yourself being the only one saying yes, being the only one to give in. And the moment you start to realize you're being taken advantage of, then you can become resentful, right? Then you become, um, I'm never going to do this for anyone else. It becomes an all or nothing thing when really it comes with practicing. So, a question I have now is, so how do you say no? You say no. Feeling guilty saying no is okay. It's okay to feel guilty, right? It's okay to feel like, okay, what did I just do? I'm a little bit anxious, right? It's natural because it's like you're learning a new language. You're not used to enforcing your boundaries. It starts by practicing. So if I ask you, can you take me to the airport? And I don't know anyone who loves to drive to the airport, so I feel like that's a great example. And I say, can you take me to the airport? And you've been working all night, you're extremely tired, and you don't want to. It's enforcing a boundary says, I'm really tired. I can't do this. Maybe you can call an Uber. And that's not justifying it. That's you saying a fact. I'm tired. So I can't do that. And it's true, right? That's when you're not justifying that. Or someone asking you, hey, would you mind watching your grandchild for the seventh time this week? And you just don't want to. Setting a boundary is, I'm sorry, I can't do that. No. I wish there was a magical way to tell you how to say no, but it literally comes from saying no, right? And I'm seeing someone writing here that, they'll say they do things for you when they're tired. I'm gonna let you know, red flag, that's manipulation. That is manipulation, and that is someone who doesn't respect your boundaries. If I ask you to do something, you say, I'm sorry, I can't. And I say, well, I would go out of my way to do it for you. That's great. That's awesome. But you're not going to put your issues and your feelings and your guilt and your shame on me. At a certain point, you have to say, my feelings are my own, yours are yours. I'm not going to carry yours anymore. A lot of us have an issue setting boundaries because we're carrying emotions that aren't ours and we're stressed out, right? We're having issues sleeping, we have anxiety, we're having panic attacks. I used to have so many panic attacks because I said yes to everything and I couldn't do it, right? So when a person who's healthy, who hears a no will say, all right, well, thank you. Well, maybe next time. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll see if someone else can. That's someone who respects your boundaries. A person who doesn't is going to try to manipulate you and guilt you into because they want their yes. The end goal is to get their yes. And boundaries always look aggressive to people who aren't used to you having them. I'm going to say that again because that's very important to note. Boundaries will always look aggressive to people who aren't used to you having them. And when you start enforcing boundaries, you're going to get there will be consequences. That's the truth of the matter because you're dealing with someone who doesn't respect boundaries. So it's not like one day they're going to say, oh, you're enforcing boundaries now. Good for you. Thank you. I'm going to go to someone else who doesn't have boundaries. No, they're trying to figure out why you are short circuiting, why you are malfunctioning. You're my yes man. You're my yes woman. What do you mean, no? I'm not accepting that. They have boundaries, right? They don't respect others' boundaries, but they may themselves have their own boundaries. They may have no issue saying no to you, but how dare you say no to me? So understand when you start exercising your voice and you start saying, no, I can't do it. No, you're not going to keep treating me this way. No, I'm not going to put up with this. You have to say no, and then you need to act. Setting boundaries is one thing, enforcing them is the other. I know many of us have children. If you keep telling your kid, if you keep messing up on your grades, I'm going to take away your phone, but you never take away the phone, then what are you really teaching them? You're teaching them that boundaries are just goalpost. You can just keep moving it, right? You can just keep creating new lines. There are no real consequences, but that's not how life goes. So if someone keeps mistreating you and someone is always just ruining your peace and bringing drama and being abusive and being nasty, it's your right to protect yourself the same way you protect their feelings every time you say yes when you mean no. It really comes down to how much do you value your peace? Because either you're going to be um, at with no peace saying yes, right? You're going to have no peace at all when you say yes to something you don't want to do, and you're going to have no peace at all when you say no and then they guilt you into saying yes. So it comes down to, are you willing to exercise your no? Are you willing to accept that no is a complete sentence? And I promise you, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become with it. I had to do this myself with family members. I had to do it in my marriage. I had to do it with friends. And when I had friends or whoever who didn't respect that, I had to give myself emotional time, meaning I'm not going to communicate with you. Maybe I'll circle back later on. That's your decision. But because you can't respect my boundary, the consequence here is you do not have access to me. That is a consequence because guess what? You're valuable. You're valuable, right? This is why people try to use you. This is why people try to take all of your energy and zap your strength and zap your peace. There's something they're getting from you. And if someone doesn't respect that, the consequence is there's no access to you. And for some of you listening in, it might even sound harsh. Like, well, I can't just cut this person off. I can't. Yeah, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. It's your choice. But are you willing to eventually get to a place where your no actually means no? Right? Getting to a point where you're no longer a genie, right? You're no longer a person who someone can walk all over or someone can just disrespect and make feel guilty about disrespecting you. That your needs and your desires and your wants are valid, that your emotions are valid, and that you're tired of being worn and depleted because you give in to everyone and because you're everything to everyone. You have to get to a point where you are tired of that and ready for the change. And once you're ready, you just start by saying no. I've seen people who would eat a whole meal they didn't even want to eat just because they didn't want to rock the boat. So it's little things. It doesn't always have to be something major and huge. It can be something minor. Okay, so I have, and I'm gonna stop for a second. Let me see what some of these questions are here. Okay, my narc recently made frozen lollipops and I said no to tasting them. She kept holding them in my face until I gave in and tried to, until you gave in and tried them. What is this? Well, actually, that's very aggressive behavior, right? That person is actually violating your physical boundary in that place. And we haven't talked about physical boundaries. That's someone getting in your face. That's you not feeling safe. And if you don't feel safe, you definitely need to create a safety plan and create a plan to exit. Because I understand some of these situations can be very violent and very dangerous. But if someone is violating your physical space, it's probably time to start safety planning and figuring out your exit plan. Violation of physical space is extremely aggressive and is not something you should take lightly. So that is very extreme, and oftentimes in abusive relationships, when someone starts to um, when they can no longer violate your emotional space, your peace, your mental health or whatever, then they'll start to try to get physical. They'll start to try and get in your face. Oftentimes, as a victim advocate, I can tell you that last sign of abuse oftentimes is the physical one. So if that's the case, it's time to start creating an exit plan. And we can talk about different resources that may be available in your area. Yeah, thanks for asking that. So I don't want to keep you guys too long. Like I said, I like to repost these videos, but if there's anything that I haven't touched on that you have a question about, go ahead and put in the chat. If you think about it later, you can always message me. Um, I want to let you guys, I want to really thank all of you who have taken the time to try coaching for the first time. I know for a lot of you, you've never done coaching before. Many of you have therapists, which is amazing. I have my own, who I'm excited to say will be on next month to talk to you guys. So she's amazing. So I'm so excited to share her with you guys. Um, so if you are interested, I did open up my calendar for the month of May at a discounted rate. So if you're interested, I only have about a week and a half left, and I have 8 more spots left. And go ahead and book an appointment. I also have the Healing Loudly course. There are 2 people in the course this month, and I'm so excited to see how much they grow. A lot of times with this whole healing process, you just need support. So that support can be coming, listening to these YouTube things. For those of you who are in Houston, I'm going to have a live event next month. So stay tuned for that so that we can have a support group in person. So, as things start to open up more, I'll have a little bit more freedom to do things in person. So I'm really, really excited about that. And my hope is that you guys can also connect with each other and get that support and know you're not alone. There's a whole community of us out there who have dealt with this. So I'm so excited to meet some of you guys in person. That was a little secret I wanted to share at the end. And I know I have a few of you guys who are in Austin and other areas, so maybe we can coordinate something as well. But like I said, I want to thank you guys for listening in. We can get through this together. And remember the book. This is an amazing book. It's called Boundaries. Okay. When to say yes, when to say no, to take control of your life. The cool thing about this book is that it also talks about religious grooming. A lot of us here, I was raised in a super religious household. And a lot of the reasons I had an issue with boundary setting is because it was just like, you're going to go to hell, and there was just that fear, right? So the book talks about that as well. So I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Like I said, make sure to subscribe to this video because I'm going to have the recording playing again. So if you came in later, if you had to leave early for whatever reason, you can catch the replay. All right. So thank you guys for listening in. I want you guys to all have a great day. And I look forward to meeting many of you. Have a great day.